What are you? Come on. Hey. Hey.
Oh boy. It's Heisenberg time.
We're done when I say we're done.
Okay, guys, welcome to the first episode, the premiere episode of the No Condiments podcast with Curtis Candy. That's me. And you're probably wondering why I call this the No Condiments podcast. You're thinking it's like because, well, you don't need any garnish. You don't need anything extra. In this podcast, you just get down right to the meat of the issues. That would have been a really solid reason to call it the No Condiments podcast, but the truth is I just don't like condiments. I should have just stuck with that other thing I said, made the whole thing sound a lot cooler, really. Well, for episode 1 of the podcast here, I've got some big breaking news. This is probably the podcast is immediately going to take off here at YouTube, any place else I post it, because I've got some big stuff right here that's going to break right now. Now, hold on to your seats. I'm getting word, it's just like through my sources, filtering in that within a week, there's like some really big vote or something going on here in America. And this is still unfolding. This is still a breaking story, but I'm going to stay on top of it for you guys. And if there are any updates as we go in the podcast, of course, I'll give them to you live, but it sounds like it might be kind of a big deal. Wondering what it is. The actual truth of the matter is, though, I've been a political junkie kind of my whole adult life. I'm also a big numbers guy. I like statistics and stuff like that. I think that just comes from my very long history of loving Major League Baseball, and no sport loves their stats any more than does baseball. So towards that end, I've been following along, and I have my current prediction as to which way the election is going to go a week from today. As I record this, it's October 29th, Tuesday, a week before the election. This could actually change between now and election day. Typically, I probably wouldn't say that. I'd say this is my final call. But when you have two candidates this prone to making gaffes or doing things that could really change the landscape in a matter of moments, not even days or weeks, there's always the chance that it could come up with a different idea. But this is what I'm thinking right now. Now, let me preface this by saying this is just my prediction. I know if my prediction goes against anybody's particular candidate, that immediately makes you the enemy. This is the internet. I mean, you have to be divided into a camp and you must hate the other side. So if my prediction doesn't go their way, I am, of course, evil incarnate. And I understand that. But the fact is, I don't know. This is just how I see things going. And if I'm wrong, it ain't going to be the first time. But here's where I stand. 5 weeks ago, we've had this conversation in live streams on my YouTube channel. I was leaning Kamala. 2 weeks ago, I just couldn't make a pick. We had talked about it a couple weeks ago, and as much as I follow everything, I follow the trends, I follow the numbers, everything I can, I didn't know. I genuinely could not make a real pick. As of today, I gotta say I think Trump ekes it out. And here, I'll explain to you why. It's a combination of things. Now we've got a lot of early voting numbers coming in, and they look to me to be heavily favoring Republicans. Now, in all fairness, you want to compare numbers back to the last presidential election, which is the obvious thing to do, but we have to remember the last presidential election took place in the midst of the pandemic. So these numbers are not going to correlate perfectly by any stretch, because there were a lot more people that were completely unwilling to come out and vote. So you're going to have whole different numbers involved in mail-in voting. That said, what I'm seeing as far as Republican turnout is kind of stunning pretty much across the board in the swing states. In Pennsylvania, in North Carolina, in Arizona, as I said, pretty much everywhere. Either Republicans are leading or they're just well outperforming what they had done in 2016 and 2020. Now, again, you relate that back to what I had said earlier. It's very possible that a lot of Democrats are going to vote in person this time, as opposed to having voted by mail last time. That's not only possible, it's likely. The thing is, there's no reason to believe the Democrats wouldn't be out in large numbers voting early in person. And I'm just not seeing that. It's starting to feel to me like there is an enthusiasm gap. I think Trump has got his supporters and even people who are simply voting for him that might not be, hardcore supporters. He seems to have them more motivated than Kamala has her base. That's at least what I'm getting the feel of. I could be wrong. I know a lot of people online, well, you can get a pundit online to try and spin anything in a positive for their team, but I know the commonplace spin is they believe that a lot of Republicans are actually going to vote Democrat. Possible. I don't see anything that tells me those numbers would be any bigger than they have been in the past. I'm working off the top of my head here, and the top of my head's been hit by a lot of metal folding chairs, for any of you that don't know that. So we're counting on something sketchy there. If I remember right, I believe Trump carried in the neighborhood of 90% of Republicans in his past elections, or maybe a little under. Maybe there's a reason to believe that Kamala is doing better. I don't know. As far as independents, I've seen so many different numbers on where the independents are going. That one, I have no idea. I genuinely don't know. I know both sides. If you ask somebody on the right, they're going to tell you, oh no, Trump's doing better than he ever has. And if you ask somebody favoring the left, they're going to tell you the exact thing about Kamala. And they each have polls to back them up. The polls have had a miserable time with this election, coming to any sort of cohesive coming together. And I haven't seen anywhere where that's more so than when they've tried to determine what the feel is of the independent or unaffiliated voter. So my thought is, I think Trump squeaks it out because I do think I'm in North Carolina. I think he wins North Carolina. I feel confident he's going to win Georgia. And the biggest thing is, I think he's going to win Pennsylvania. Those early numbers coming in are really big for Republicans, and I just haven't seen anything that makes me believe that the Democrats are going to pick off a substantial number of Republican voters. Now, again, I could be wrong. We're going to find out in a week. I could be way off. But this is just my opinion. As it stands right now, if it were a percentage thing, now, I'm talking as somebody who likes numbers and likes to make odds. I'm not saying this is by how many points Trump's going to win. I'm saying as a percentage thing, if I were to call it right now how I feel, I'd say it's 57-43 Trump. And then when you think about that, a 43% chance of winning something is still pretty freaking good. So in other words, it's still this tight. It's going to come right down to the wire. And as I said, we've got a whole week to go. I might flip-flop 2 more times on who I think is going to win, just depending on what these 2 genius candidates do between now and then. Now, who am I voting for? Who did I vote for? I've already voted. I'm in North Carolina. I voted early. I voted for Trump. And I will tell you exactly why. I am not a fan of the man himself. Being from New York, Trump has been a part of our stratosphere for decades, and I've never liked him. I've always thought he's obnoxious. I've always thought he's a bit of a bore. Just not a likable person. I think he is driven 100% by ego. But I don't base my vote on personality. I voted on policy. And the top end, the biggest factor to me in voting for president is how their policies may affect my kids and grandkids. I'm 63. I'm not going to see a lot of effect no matter who gets into office, but my kids and grandkids will. And it's a real simple thing for me. I will never vote for the side that is more prone to the government taking more of our money in to redistribute it back to us. It's that simple. The government has never, ever demonstrated an ability to do that effectively, and pretty much they've screwed up everything they've touched. They've made such an abysmal mess of the Social Security system, for instance, and both sides will again point the finger at the other for doing that. Over the years, it's been both. They've both corrupted it. They can't do it. They can't handle money effectively, and giving them more of your money is a recipe for disaster for these generations that are to come. So that makes a lot of people on the left upset because, like, well, we need to do something. We've got to have Medicare for all, one-payer healthcare, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree. I think there needs to be major overhauls in how we handle healthcare in America, but not single-payer. And a lot of people around the world that I know personally through the internet, because I've had a YouTube channel forever and been doing live streams with people from all over the world forever, a lot of people that have the single-payer healthcare do agree with me. But that's a topic for another time, and we can cover that. But all I'm saying is I will never vote for the person who thinks it's a good idea for government to have even more of our money and allow them to redistribute it back to us, because that won't work. It won't work out well for anybody. Now, given that, the next question would be, so what am I going to do on November 6th if Kamala Harris has won the election? I mean, I can tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to start making videos for my channels, and breakfast time, I'm going to go down and I'm going to eat a couple of these really good little Jimmy Dean sausage sandwiches. They're mini sausage sandwiches that you pop in the microwave. Oh, they're delicious. And I'm going to watch some Sports Center, catch up on what went on the night before. That's what I'm going to do. The same thing I do every day, in other words, because I will have been outvoted. My candidate didn't win. So going forward, as a citizen, I'll do whatever I can to try and prevent the Harris administration from enacting policies that I personally am at odds with. But other than that, I'll go on with day-to-day life. The problem is, I don't think there's a lot of people on both sides that are going to take it that well if their candidate doesn't win. And that's where I want to bring up a word of caution, a word of warning to all of you. And I mean this sincerely. Be very aware in the days following the election. Be aware of your surroundings. We've got, and it's the extremists, and both sides, whether they want to deny them or not, have extremists, the left and the right. If Trump wins, you have a section of the extreme left that feels that is unacceptable and they won't accept it, and that they were entitled to this election, and I do believe they will lash out in a big way. If Kamala wins, I guarantee you there's a big section of the extreme right that is going to be convinced that that election was stolen. And they are going to be raving mad about it. So be aware. In the days afterwards, just be aware of what you're doing. And I mean this sincerely. Because you could say, I'm going to be someplace safe. I'm going to be at the market. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be there. What's going to happen? I believe no matter who wins, you're going to see pockets of unrest. It could happen in your grocery store. Let's say Kamala wins. You're in the grocery store. There's a couple people talking to one another, celebrating Kamala's win, and so happy she won. And it's going to tweak those two hardcore right Trump supporters in the next aisle over, and there's going to be a problem, and you don't want to get swept up in it. And those individual problems could grow to be bigger problems. I do think if Trump wins, there will be more coordinated protests. And what happens when you get a coordinated protest, you're going to have invaders who use the protest as a means to go looting, rioting, collecting sneakers and big screen TVs. So just be aware of where you are. And don't get me wrong, I'm not letting the far right off the hook. I think that they will absolutely act out too. I just don't know if they will be as coordinated in their protests. I think it might be smaller, but possibly more volatile pockets of unrest. So just pay attention. Be aware of where you are, especially if you're out with your kids or something like that, and just try and stay away from it. And hopefully, we all, no matter who wins, we all get through it, and maybe everybody on both sides can at least see that part the way I do, which is, hey, life goes on, and it's going to go on no matter who wins, despite what the extremists on each side think. They'll both argue with me, no, life will not go on. It's the end of life if Kamala doesn't win. Everything is over if Trump doesn't win. No, it's not true at all. Not even close to being true. Go on about your business. Stay focused. Stay involved. Do what you can to try and keep your life the way you want your life to be by getting involved in local governments and whatnot. And that's it. That's all you can do. Oh, I had one more thing I wanted to bring up. Did you guys hear about the E-Coli breakout at McDonald's? Well, there was an E-Coli breakout. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was something to do with some of the onions they had been using in some of their burgers. I just read an article, and it was quoting the McDonald's CFO. The CFO said that the E-Coli breakout, now mind you, if my numbers are correct, one person died and at least 75 have gotten sick from E. coli from eating at McDonald's. The CFO said it didn't have any effect in their bottom line. There was no dip in sales, and they fully do not expect there to be any repercussions as far as sales from it going forward. Now, mind you, I don't think McDonald's laced any burgers with E. coli on purpose. I think it was clearly a mistake. But have they become that Teflon? A person died, a bunch of people got sick, and nobody batted an eye. Nobody. They're like, no. Wow, did you hear about... As they're chewing on a Big Mac, talking to their friends, going, hey, did you hear about the person who died from E. coli at McDonald's? Well, sucks to be them. How does that happen? It got me thinking. And again, I'm going to state this unequivocally. I don't think McDonald's did any of this on purpose. However, given this data set that they did spread some E. coli out there, and everybody just went, whatever. Like I say, I want a quarter pounder. If I was McDonald's, I'd be thinking, do you know how much money they could make going to the pharmaceutical companies, who, of course, are always up and above the board? The pharmaceutical companies are among the most respected, well-respected organizations in our society. If they went to them and said, hey, you got any new drugs you want to try out, but you can't get past all that pesky red tape to do human trials, we'll throw a little bit of it in the French fry vat, And I'm not saying McDonald's would do this. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if I was running McDonald's, it would be something you would think about. Do you know how much those companies, those pharmaceutical companies, would pay to get some human trials done? So they put something a little extra in your fries, something like that, and then they keep track of how many people grow a third eye. And if some of them do grow a third eye, McDonald's comes out and says, ooh, sorry, that was a distributor thing. We didn't know. Sorry about that third eye. Do you want a Big Mac? Just seems like, it does seem like a great new source of substantial amounts of income for McDonald's. And I do not think they would ever do anything so vile and disgusting. But if they do, Ronald should know that I want to cut because I suggested it. And then finally, let's touch on sports. I got two things I want to talk about in the sports world. First of all, sadly, I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. Now, the NFL is not my biggest passion. College football is. I'm a Notre Dame fan, and that's where I lose all sense of reason and logic. The Cowboys, I've been a fan since I was like 6, 7 years old. I started with Bob Lilly and Bob Hayes. They were my heroes. But I do like to think of myself as one of these Cowboy fans that is, at least I'm reasonable about expectations. Going into this year, we had a lot of our fandom that thought this was a Super Bowl year. Coming into this season, I thought we were a 50-50 shot to make the playoffs. Now I think we're substantially less than a 50-50 shot to make the playoffs. But all I want to say about the Cowboy season is this. thank you to the New York Jets. Because the New York Jets, bringing in Aaron Rodgers, and having been saying for so long they're just a quarterback away from being a top shelf team, from being a Super Bowl contending team, those New York Jets at 2-6, who just lost to the New England Patriots, who had lost 6 in a row and were showing no signs of life, were just about to have the sheet pulled up over their heads. The New York Jets are preventing the Dallas Cowboys from being the biggest disappointment of the year in football. So I just want to say thank you to the New York Jets and to their upper management for putting that together for us. At least that's one thing we can't claim this year. We're not as disappointing, or we can claim this year, we're not as disappointing as the Jets. And then the final thing I want to touch on, as I sit here, the Dodgers are up on the Yankees 3-0 in the World Series. It could end tonight. There's another game tonight. The Dodgers could wrap it up. I've always been a Yankees supporter. I'm a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. That tells you a lot. For any of you who don't know, the Pittsburgh Pirates own the record in all of major American sports, professional sports. They hold the record for most losing seasons in a row. I follow a lot of record-setting teams. We haven't been back to the World Series since 1979. That would be, in quick math here, 45 years. Holy crap. I'm old because I remember the last time vividly. You have to hold on to those memories because I don't think I'm going to see them back in the series anytime in my life. But anyway, always been a Pirates fan, always rooted for the Yankees in the American League. So I've been rooting for them, obviously, against the Dodgers. So far, they've laid an egg, and Aaron Judge, of who I am a great admirer, I think he's a phenomenal baseball player. He hasn't played well in playoffs. He's not been good in October, and he's been particularly bad through this series. So unless there's a major turnaround tonight and the Yankees win and get some more games going forward, unless he catches on fire, this whole postseason is going to do a lot to hurt his reputation. That hurts me too, because I like the kid. I think he's a hell of a ball player, and I really feel for him. But all I can say is, the whole thing with Aaron Judge, for those of you who don't know, he'll hit a home run, and there are calls of all rise because Judge just hit a home run, and the stands would rise, and it would be all over social media, all rise whenever he hits a home run. It got me thinking, the only reason you would want to rise now would be to get up and go take a piss when Judge comes to the plate so you don't have to watch him strike out again. Yeah, it's been a sad time for me. Talk to you guys soon.
So in short, we need to pick some new restaurants and nightclubs.
Get out of my freaking pool!
That was great.